The Gran Turismo series is well known for their pretty open upgrade system, but over the franchise's lifespan there are a few upgrades which have been more restrictive than others. In the first 4 Gran Turismo games, the NA tuning, turbochargers and superchargers are all mutually exclusive, meaning that you can have only one of these applied to your car. While this was presumably done for balancing reasons, combining these would definitely not be impossible in real life, and even you may have some point have wondered what would happen if you could actually combine these upgrades. Well, thanks to a simple and pretty hilarious glitch in early versions of the Gran Turismo 4 Spec II mod, those thoughts can now become a reality. Something which we have called the free aspiration fusion. In order for this to work, you first need to have the right version of the game. This glitch was patched in version 1.06, so you'll need version 1.05 or earlier to perform this glitch, though the Appmeister, the mod's main developer, said that it may return as an actual feature in the future. Since it's no longer available on the website, I'll leave a link for version 1.05 in the description, and all you have to do is to follow the same instructions as when you install any other version of the mod. Don't throw away any later versions just yet, however, as these will come in handy later. Not to mention that your save file and the cars we will be building on it are fully usable between versions. Once that's sorted out, you need to find an eligible car, and the first requirement is that it must have at least 2 out of the 3 mutually exclusive upgrades, those being NA tuning, turbo and or supercharger, as mentioned earlier. So for those willing to make their supers or skylines even more powerful, I would have to disappoint you. Since many JDMs come pre-equipped with a turbocharger, they will only have turbocharger upgrades available to them. And since nearly all of their non-turbocharged counterparts can only have NA tuning, there's a surprisingly large amount of cars that won't be able to benefit from this trick. But the second requirement is where this glitch comes in, which involves the newly added paint shop. Yes, you heard that right. Repainting your car in Spec II can indeed improve your car's performance, which means that your car will also need to have at least 2 color options available for this to work. To make your life easier on this, there is a list of just over 250 cars that meet both criteria, which I've bundled with the mod. And if your desired car is in that list, the real fun can begin. First, purchase any combination of the 3 upgrades in question, but make sure to have the turbocharger equipped, or supercharger if it lacks turbo upgrades. If possible, make sure to apply these upgrades in the tuning village, as the shop's unique original turbocharger is often a much better option than the standard ones, and a few cars like the Nissan 350Z only have a turbo available at the tuner village. Then head over to GT Auto's paint shop, select a different color and hit apply. And voila! Your car is now officially unshackled from the game's upgrade restrictions. To make a long story short in its actual workings, the paint job essentially makes a copy of your car with the new color and applies all upgrades, which then somehow allows it to combine upgrades it's normally not supposed to. The turbo and supercharger likely have some kind of priority here, as it doesn't work when only the NA tuning is on your car. It also means that any setups made for the car will be reset, as well as any rear ring upgrades and custom rims. Also, the guys working at GT Auto are so good at servicing your car that repainting it also magically refreshes the oil, which means you don't have to purchase this afterwards. And lastly, if you had applied the full restoration, your engine will be back to peak performance once you apply a new coat of paint. You can also do this in later versions as the engine wear restoration functionality was fixed there, but this also makes it possible to do it here if you want to extract that little bit of extra power out of any used car. So now that you have unlocked this forbidden power, the question becomes, on which cars does it work the best? This comes down to a few factors, but the first and most obvious one is related to cars which have all 3 upgrades available at once. This allows you to create some ludicrously powerful cars, like having over 800 horsepower in an RX-8 or Nissan 350Z, or well over 700 horsepower in a Miata, which should be enough to satisfy any Miata fan, even though it does turn them into death traps. But there's also something more important than the amount of upgrades, which comes from the individual upgrades themselves. Every performance upgrade obviously changes certain stats of the car it's applied to, but not all upgrades are created equal. For example, on some cars a turbocharger may add 50% more horsepower, which would already be plenty on a car with 300 brake horsepower. But some cars, especially older low-powered ones, can have upgrades that more than double the base power output. And the best part? With the help of the free aspiration fusion, these upgrades stack multiplicatively. So if a car has a turbo and an NA upgrade which both add 4 times the power, combining them onto a single car means it will not just have 8 times more power, but 16 times more power. This is what allows you to create some truly insane vehicles, as something like a Daihatsu Midget can easily exceed 200 horsepower with this, turning the sports truck race into one of the most hilarious cakewalks you've ever seen. But classics like the Fiat 500 can even reach over 350 horsepower, which, combined with its extremely low weight, allows it to compete in events like the Dream Car Championship, even though it wants to murder you in every corner. But why stop at road-going vehicles? Since there are also race cars with multiple color options, there's a few of these that can also become significantly more powerful with this. This includes a few silly options like the Volkswagen Lupo and Nissan Micra Cup cars, but also two full-size ones. The first one of these two is a Honda S2000 LM race car that, now with over 700 horsepower and an engine that revs well over 12,000 RPM, sounds and drives something like this. But the second option is arguably the silliest one, as it's none other than the Chad Merrow LM race car itself, which can now reach a peak power output of 1200 horsepower. You can probably imagine just how crazy that is. That pulls you onto the main straight and we can still pass the Audi, like that. And that's a lap. But there is one more thing you can do to take some of these ludicrous machines one step further, and that all has to do with having multiple versions as mentioned at the beginning. Remember when I said that these cars are transferable to newer versions of the mod? This means you can make use of another new feature of the mod added in later versions, as a bunch of cars receive new upgrades, and one of these upgrades is an all-wheel drive swap. Since some of the eligible cars are front-wheel drive stock, they aren't really that useful outside of something like the Wind. But if it also has the drivetrain swap, you suddenly have a much more capable car at your disposal. Two of my favorite examples here are the Volkswagen Beetle 2.0 and the Fiat Panda. The former turning into a Volkswagen Beetle RSI on many kinds of illicit substances, and the latter being a true pocket rocket as it weighs about as much as the Gigachino, but with over 3 times the power output. This even allows you to do the opposite thing and carry these upgrades over into older versions where they don't exist yet, and you may have already seen how that turned out. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 600! It's actually possible, there's no way! And that's basically everything you need to know. Now you can enjoy building some of the most ridiculous vehicles without using any hybriding tools. And as much as I've already tried my best to get the most out of this, you can probably find new things I haven't even seen yet. So feel free to let me know in the comments if you found something crazy yourself. Thanks for watching, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more like this, and as always, have a great day.